Alrighty, so well, there is a break between the first of what would be a very busy Saturday night action and then the game between Minnesota United versus Houston Dynamo just finished a couple of minutes ago. I thought this was a good time for me to just do the review of the Friday game and then I'll also do the preview of the Sunday game that's going to happen to finish off match week number 27, which there's going to be 3 games. But in terms of the 2 Friday game that we saw, which we definitely saw some big things that happen in both of these games, because you have one that is the battle between the top 2 teams in the Western Conference, and then the other is the Cascadia Derby. And I don't really need to say anything other than that. And I actually also had a tough decision of which jersey should I be wearing for the review. Should I be wearing the Verde, because Austin arguably got their best win in their franchise history, or should I wear the Timbers green, because the Timbers also got a big victory in the Cascadia Derby? Well, in the end, you probably know what I decided to choose. I decided to wear the Verde, and representing Austin, of course, as I mentioned, getting probably the biggest win in their franchise history by winning 4-1 against LAFC. And when Josh Wu mentioned the fact that this game was the biggest game in their franchise history, he wasn't kidding, because you can definitely see in this game where all these Austin players were giving 150%. Like, this was probably by far the best I've seen Austin play throughout the entire season. And not to mention Q2 Stadium, I mentioned how it's one of the best atmosphere in the league. This was probably the loudest I've seen it, and it felt like a playoff atmosphere with the way that they played against LAFC in this one. And it's no surprise that 12 men really ride this team of just a thumping that Austin FC had against LAFC. Now, early on, Driussi did bend one just wide from long range before Morella hits it high from the corner. There was some pushing and shoving early, as I thought this was going to be an intense game. I mean, you knew that with the way that this is a battle between the top 2 team and battle between who has the superiority in the Western Conference, it's going to get heated, and little do we know that things will get much more heated than the pushing and shoving we saw early in this one. There was a shout for a handball in the box not given for LAFC before, on the other end, there was a shout for a penalty for Austin that was also not given. And really, after a fast-paced start to this game kind of become a little bit scrappy. I mean, both of these teams weren't really doing well on the attack. There was some sloppy passes for both of these teams. Though, that being said, in terms of possession-wise, it's been all Austin since minute 10. Like, they really don't dominate in terms of possession, and they were controlling this game, and LAFC was just getting pinned deep, and they would just keep giving the ball away in the midfield and just cannot play out of the Austin press, which it shouldn't be a big surprise that Austin eventually would capitalize on all the possession that they had by scoring a goal in the 32nd minute. Though this one came from a set piece, and it came from a wonderful free kick for Diego Fagundes, because that Diego Fagundes can score free kick like that. I mean, this team has been so lethal in every aspect on the attack, and this was just another example of a wonderful free kick that Austin have scored so many times, and Fagundes is the latest one to be on the score sheet of a wonderful free kick to give Austin a 1-0 lead. And Q2 Stadium erupt the loudest I've ever seen. Like, when that goal went in, the roof literally blown off out of Q2 Stadium with how loud it got in that stadium. Like, you knew that these fans know what this game means to them, and especially how big this game is. Though in the 38th minute, more tempers flare that happened, and this was a really ugly kind of tempers flare moment and kind of a mass confrontation that kind of all started when Urruti stomped Morello to the ground. Now, I wrote the word stomp with quotation mark because, let's be honest, that was not a stomp. Morello clearly decided that he's gonna look at what Matko Majevic did over the weekend, and he's gonna try to one up that of making the worst kind of dive you would ever seen. And yeah, I mean, I have a feeling something tells me on Tuesday the disciplinary committee is going to knock on Morello's door and probably going to fight him for that, because yeah, that was kind of a disgusting dive that it is. And it's no surprise that Ruti immediately throw his hand up in frustration, because yeah, it was pretty clear that Morello was trying to send him off with just a Hollywood acting job of a dive that just clearly was not the case. But it also kind of kicked off a thing. I think Crepeau also came out and he was having some choice words with Urruti. Though that being said, this mass competition kind of started even before this, where it all kind of started with Morello decided to push Urruti off the pitch, and I was kind of surprised the referee did not call a foul for that, because when you push someone off the field as deliberate as what we saw Morello did to Urruti, that should be a foul. Because if the referee calls that a foul, maybe Urruti might have not just retaliated, but decided to maybe stomp on Murillo, and basically Murillo trying to kind of bait him into that. And, he kind of did a good job in terms of baiting him to that, but definitely not a great job in terms of the diving that he did there. But nevertheless, there was no red card that was happening in this incident, but I just kind of have a feeling there were going to be a red card in this, because there was a lot of yellow cards up to that point. It was stacking up, and I was also hoping that eventually we don't get to that point, because in such an intense game like that, the last thing I want is a red card that is shown in this game that could maybe ruin what could be a great game between these top two teams in the Western Conference. Crepeau then denied Urruti, who went through on goal before the first real look of goal by Gareth Bale, but he blasted that one into the stands. In fact, that was really the first good look that LAFC had since the beginning of the first half. But we head to halftime with Austin leading 1-0. Despite Austin being the better team, you know that LAFC eventually is going to get things going, right? Because after all, this is a second half team, right? Well, no, because in the second half, straight out of the gate, Austin would double the lead. And it's Urruti scoring from Lima to make it 2-0 in favor of LAFC. Arango tried to tie it up, or trying to get one back, but he hits that one high. But then just a couple of minutes later, Urruti would score again, this time for Fagundes and Rain, and this was just a terrible giveaway from LAFC in the midfield, but even more criminal defending there from Segura and Hollinshead. Like, they literally let Urruti went by them unchallenged like that. Like, that is some horror defending that I've seen, and also kind of very MLS level kind of defending that maybe is a good example to give a lot of Euro snub of why maybe MLS defending are considered some of the worst in the league. But that being said, that of course made it 3-0, and I immediately wrote, is LAFC imploding in big game again? This has been a problem for LAFC in their franchise history, and this is why, even if they head to the playoffs, even if they finish first in the Western Conference, there is still that concern of, are they going to have these kind of performance where they just kind of implode in the playoffs? Because after all, in the playoffs, and especially in a single elimination, it doesn't matter how you play throughout the season. If you have one bad performance in the playoffs, and because of the single elimination kind of playoffs that we have now got, yeah, you could be done in the playoffs. You can have one bad performance, and then you're basically out of the playoffs. And that's kind of been the story for LAFC, and that, in this game, in such a big game like that, it feels like, here we go again. It's a big game that LAFC had, and they just could not comes up a way to put in a clutch performance. And it got even worse for them, because in the 59th minute, Driussi would get on the score sheet, because of course Sebastian Driussi has to be on the score sheet. You want to join in the goal scoring fun, as he scored here for Fagundes to make it 4-0 in favor of Austin. It was party atmosphere at Q2 Stadium, though it was kind of interrupt a little bit when Arango did get one back for LAFC to make it 4-1. Then he blasted it hard as he was trying to make it 4-2 in this game. And I thought Austin's got to be careful, because even with this 4-1 lead, we know LAFC have a very potent attack, and they can easily make this game interesting. And especially, this could also be a game that I mentioned. I expect there's going to be a lot of goals in this one, because both of these teams tend to be a free scoring team. It could easily turn from a 4-1 game to maybe even a 4-4 game. But in the 71st minute, Arango did went through on goal, but he struck the post. But then he thought that he was brought down by Gabrielson, as he basically hits that one off the post. I think that was a good call, because I didn't think there was really much into that one. But there was no doubt the momentum was with LAFC. Since they of course made the subs and also the goals that they had, the momentum was back to them, and this started to kind of look like the LAFC second half team that we know, where they are just such a dangerous team in the second half this season. Crepeau then denied Driussi on the header, as that was a rare opportunity that Austin had ever since giving up that goal. Before Opoku had a half-heart long-range shot that goes wide, but then he had a much closer one as he hits one from long range right to Stuver. Then Stuver had to deny Trejo from close range before Opoku just puts it over, as he was trying to chip it over Stuver, but it goes over the bar. And yeah, I mean, LAFC was really pushing to try to maybe make this game interesting, but ultimately Austin was able to hold on to win 4-1 in this game. And one more thing before I talk about the stats. Now, there was kind of an interesting moment right at the end of the game, that ESPN decided that they were going to show a couple of Austin fans leaving the stadium, which John Champion basically decided to him, and that I think Taylor Twellman also kind of disagree with the diss in a little bit. And usually I don't agree with Taylor Twellman a lot of things, but in this case, I think I agree with him. I think that was just absolutely no need for what John Champion, and especially what the ESPN production just to do. Like, why in the world do you show, like, Austin has had an amazing night. It's been the best night in their franchise history. So why in the world are you showing fans leaving in the stadium and just kind of just deprive what a great support this team has? Like, yes, I get it. Leaving games early is not a good thing, but this is a blowout. Like, we've seen this not only in MLS, but pretty much in sports in general, where if you're a team that is winning big or if you're a team that is losing big, fans are going to leave the stadium because this game is pretty much out of reach and it's pretty much garbage time right now. So I think that was completely wrong and just no need to do that, especially with how the ESPN production and John Champion kind of decided to diss the Austin fans of saying that they're not loyal because they decided to leave the stadium and not stay for the team victory. But that being said, I think that's kind of also expected because anytime when you're on a national television game, the LA team always gets the bias. And then you can even tell that from the commentary in this game by John Champion and Taylor Twellman, they're probably a little bit disappointed that LAFC got destroyed because they really want the headlines of LAFC getting another win against Austin FC to remain of what the media favorite headline, and that is LAFC remains the favorites of winning MLS Cup and are the best team in the league. Though, that being said, in terms of shots in this one, 15 shots per the 11 that Austin had, 9 shots on goal per the 5 that LAFC had, 2 shots off target per the 9 that LAFC had, no shots that was blocked per the 1 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to the 48% possession that Austin has in this game. And for LAFC, I would say that there maybe is a little bit of a concern because the fact that, they have not been playing very well. And I think this is kind of the third straight performance that they have not looked like the LAFC that we've seen doing that 7-game winning streak. And that, in these big game like that, this is where they really need to start thinking about showing up because they're going to have these kind of game in the playoffs. Like, if you're going to win MLS Cup, you're going to get these kind of game. And it's all about winning these kind of one. And so far, throughout the time that LAFC has been, they haven't won a lot of these big game. And that maybe is the reason why they're... I think if there is one thing that I could say that, LAFC, I still think they are the odds favor of winning MLS Cup. But if there's one thing that maybe makes me feel like maybe they might not win it, is these kind of games. And not able to pull through at the end of the day. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match, we got the Cascadia Derby between the Portland Timbers versus the Seattle Sounders, and let's just say that this was probably one of the most sloppiest game I have seen in MLS so far, because, man, this was a game that kind of sums up why these two Cascadia teams are below the red line right now, where the passing was just absolutely horrendous throughout this game, and there was just so many turnover that was committed, especially from the Sounders side. But despite the fact that, this was kind of an ugly game for most part of it, you kind of had a sense that because of a Cascadia Derby and how I mentioned before, only one Cascadia Derby has ended in a draw out of the last 10, somebody's going to have to win this ugly game. And in the end, it was the Portland Timbers that won this ugly game by winning 2-1 against the Sounders, and a win that, I also said coming into this Cascadia Derby, whoever wins this game most likely has the shot of making the playoffs, and whoever loses this one, most likely they could be missing the playoffs. And you just said that for the Seattle Sounders, with them being on the losing end, is this finally the year where we could see them miss the playoffs? And are we going to finally see the longest playoff streak so far in MLS history is going to finally come to an end this year? Now, early on, just 3 minutes in, the first shot of the Cascadia Derby came as McGraw puts it wide on the volley. This was a big gamble for Giovanni Savarese to start Zach McGraw in this game, because McGraw hasn't really been playing for the Timbers, and I know Mabiala has been kind of struggling for the Timbers lately, but this was a really bold move to try to give McGraw a chance here. In some way, I kind of think that paid off, because he actually had a really decent game in this one, though not so much in the 8th minute in terms of the Portland Timbers, because they would concede the early goal. It's Yamar scoring from Alex Rodon to give the Sounders a 1-0 lead. It was not great defending on the set piece from the Portland Timbers, which that's something that I've said a lot this year and also in previous season. It's always been one of the big Achilles heel that they had where they're not. There's time where they have not looked good in terms of those set pieces and those ball coming into the box. And really up to that point, I thought, is this going to be once again the continue the narrative where I've also mentioned 8 out of the last 10 Cascadia Derby has been won by the away team, and it looked like we're on point of potentially making it 9 out of 11. But to the Timbers' credit, they did respond well, and that they had most of the possession ever since they conceded. Fry did deny Tuiluma on the free kick. It was a beautiful free kick there from Tuiluma, and Fry had to make a full stretch dive to make that save. And despite having most of the possession, I still feel like the Timbers were being too slow on the build-up. And in the final third, yeah, forget about it. They were terrible in the final third. They just cannot not put those good final ball into the box. And I think you can also say that kind of sums up in the early part of this game, because I even wrote, overall, it's been a sloppy game. Like, neither of these teams was stringing too many passes together and generating any good attack. Though Tuiluma did have a chance in the 29th minute as he sends one into the Timbers army before Blanco heads it just wide. As I also thought that there was way too many turnovers started to come for the Sounders. And as I mentioned, that was a story for them in this Cascadia Derby. They were turning the ball over so many times that you might as well just say that they might be Santa Claus in this game with the amount of turnover that they were gifting to the Timbers in this one. But I also thought that the pressure would start to come for the Timbers. Like, they would start to generate some half chances, and that if they can just find that finishing and a better final ball product, they will find a way to get the equalizer. Well, safe to say that they did have a chance to get the equalizer in the 39th minute when a penalty was given to the Timbers as Yeimar brought down Williamson in the box. Now, this is highly controversial because, when I look on the replay, yeah, I feel like this was kind of more like Williamson decided to draw that penalty and kind of dive into Yeimar to initiate the contact. And whenever that happened, I feel like, that maybe is a bit of a soft penalty. But at the same time, I feel like this was also kind of one of those play in the gray area where it's a soft penalty, but if they go to VAR for this, which they did, I don't think they're gonna overturn it. I don't think there was enough distribute evidence to say that Wilson clearly initiated that contact and jumped into Yeimar and basically brought himself down so he can win the penalty. So the penalty, of course, stands, which Darren Asprilla steps up to score the penalty, which he does. As he puts that one away, it's tied up at 1 apiece, and then Asprilla trying to get his second goal of the game, but Fry was able to deny them. But this probably wouldn't happen if it wasn't for a brain dead turnover from Nuhu. Like, I have no idea why Nuhu decided to pretend that he was Messi there, just kind of trying to do a little spin move in his own box. Like, you don't do that when you're in your own box. When you're in your own box, you should just kind of pass around or just kind of maybe boots one. You don't just decide to go for a spin move like what we saw Nuhu in this play. And that, yeah, rightfully so, I said that was just a brain dead kind of move, and it almost cost the Sounders there. But we do remain tied at 1 apiece heading into the second half. And in the second half, I thought the Sounders were kind of on the front foot early in this game. They finally started to gain some possession in the Timbers hat. Like, for the entire first half, besides the first 10 minutes, they were getting no possession in the Timbers half. Like, they was just getting pinned deep, and a lot of that has to do with them just keep turning the ball over every time they get into the midfield. Like, it feels like that Timbers half for the Sounders were the floor is lava, or the Sounders were playing the floor is lava in the Timbers half. Like, they just cannot cross that halfway line because of the amount of turnover that they of course get. But they did start to possess a little bit more on the Timbers end, but it wouldn't matter because in the 51st minute the Timbers would take the lead. It's Sebastian Blanco, of course it has to be Blanco scoring a big goal. Yes, he scored here from Asprilla and Williamson to make it 2-1 in favor of the Timbers, but that was not great set piece defending there for the Sounders. Like, we talk about the poor set piece defending for the Timbers that give up the first goal for the Sounders. This was almost an identical goal. Like, that was just some poor marking there from the Sounders, especially leaving Sebastian Blanco wide open like that in the back post. Like, you do not leave Sebastian Blanco wide open and not expect yourself to concede a goal there. And yeah, the Sounders paid the price there, and the Timbers all of a sudden turns this game around, and they leads it 2-1 in this Cascadia derby. It was almost 3-1 when McGraw hits it over as another turnover came for the Sounders. It feels like turnover barrage is back for the Sounders in the second half. The Timbers, I also thought that, besides the bad turnover that the Sounders had, I still will give credit to the Timbers press. Like, it was very effective. Like, they were really pressing the Sounders very well and not allowing them to create any traction whatsoever in their opponent end. But at the same time, the final third still looked very poor. Like, they just had no idea whenever they get to the final third, and those balls coming into the box was just non-existent. McGraw then hits it just high on the header before Alex Rodon blasted wide on the volley. Yema then blasts one into the Timbers army, which I thought that kind of sums up the Sounders night, because they were just not doing anything at all on the attack, and anytime when they do have some half chances, they basically ballooned it into the stands. But Morris then had a diving header that just goes wide in the 80th minute, and then I just kind of started to feel like, if you're the Timbers, you got to be careful, because we've seen this headlines before where we see this narrative before where, when you're a team that is holding on to the lead and you decide to be super complacent and just kind of defend for the remaining of the game, it's going to come back to haunt you. In fact, it almost haunt the Timbers, because in the 85th minute, Jackson Reagan struck the post on a free header. Again, some poor marking there from the Sounders on the set piece, and they got away with that one. And I also feel like it's butt clutching time for the 24,000 inside Providence Park. Like, you knew that the Sounders were pressing to try to get the equalizer. They did check to see whether or not if Williamson brought down Montero in the box, which VAR said no. Nishgoda then tried to call it again, but he put it straight to Fry before Fry had to deny Lorette in the front post. And then Rodon had a big opportunity in the 8th minute as he fires one just wide into the traffic, as the full-time whistle was blown after that shot, of course, was missed. But in the end, for the Timbers, despite the fact that this was an ugly game from them, they survive and win 2-1 in this one and go above the red line at the time of this recording, because, things can still change, especially what happened tomorrow with the Galaxy, whether or not if they can, of course, win against the refs. But as of now, they're still above the red line, while the Sounders still find themselves below the red line. And the shots in this one, 18 shots compared to 9 that the Sounders had, 2 shots on goal for the 6 that the Timbers had, 8 shots off target for the 5 that the Sounders had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 2 that the Sounders had, and possession-wise, 50% for both of these teams. And yeah, as I said, for the Timbers, this is not only a much-needed win, but this is a win that you could say that can really start to kick off of their chances of finish above the red line, because we've seen this before with the Timbers last year. They were in a dire need, and then they got a big Cascadia derby win, and then the rest of the season they went on a run and eventually finished 4th in the Western Conference. Now, whether or not if that can happen in a short amount of time, I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot a game left in that. I feel like there is starting to be a little bit of a pull away in terms of those teams in 3rd, 4th, and 5th in terms of the rest of the conference, or the rest of the playoff race in the Western Conference. But, the Timbers right now, all they worry is trying to get themselves above the red line. And that also goes the same case for the Sounders, where I feel like the inevitable could happen. I mean, we said the same thing with Toronto FC back in 2018, where, there's no way with such a strong team like that, coming up oh so close of becoming the first team to win CCL, that they're going to really just drop the ball when it comes to league play. But it feels like this is the case for the Sounders. I mean, fresh off of the CCL win, you just kind of sense that the fatigue is starting to show, and the amount of injuries that they have to deal with this season to a lot of their star player, it started to take a toll off this team. And that, unless if they can't figure things out after this big Cascadia derby loss, the unthinkable could happen. We could see the Seattle Sounders, for the first time in their MLS history, miss the playoffs in the Western Conference. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for my review of both of these games that happened yesterday. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and as always, let me know in the comments below. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of both of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.